as a hero, should have been admired by all nations, but he chose to embrace the darkness. In this life, he decided to become the most evil undead master and destroy all the justice in human beings. It turned out that one day in 2024, a large number of dungeons suddenly emerged around the world. When the human world was heavily damaged, humans also awakened a special power called omnipotence. But originally, these chosen by God would save the world. But they were afraid of their own selfish desires. They began to usurp national power. The world began to reshuffle, and the male lead, Yoren, is also one of the victims of this incident. When he faced the last dungeon, Yoren was betrayed by his closest comrades. Because as long as the farce is over, the world would immediately return to peace. The power accumulated over the years will disappear with it. Ordinary people have no reason to continue to obey orders. The so-called burden of heroes is just a capital for them to give orders. And Yoren, as the hero who wanted to save the world the most, no longer qualified to continue living. At this moment, he finally understood. He was just a tool for the traitor. An ambition. He began to yell hysterically at Jiang Qian. Tell me that all this is not true. Originally, Jiang Qian was Yoren's most trusted friend. When he had no hope for the world, it was Jiang Qian's belief, a person who was abandoned by his parents, to regain his desire for life. I will end all the dungeons and bring peace to the world. But Yuan never expected that. The only trustworthy friend turned out to be the culprit who killed him. But when Yoren opened his eyes again, he found that he came to a time when he hadn't obtained omnipotence. Seeing that he wasn't stabbed, his body, he thought it was a dying illusion after death. But in the next second, the vehicle Yoren was in suddenly braked sharply. And then everyone jumped out of the car with weapons. Following the position where his comrade aimed, he realized that a large number of orcs attacking the city appeared ahead. Without hesitation, he picked up a K-47 and started shooting. He easily killed all the enemies in the way. But from the feel of shooting and flexible figure, Yoren realized that he was not in an illusion at all. The only way to explain the current situation is that he was reborn. But because of Yoren's private action, he was scolded by the leading officer. Are you out of your mind? You almost killed us. Hearing this, Yoren was not moved at all and continued walking forward. Having experienced the previous life of possession, how could he still care about the safety of other people's lives? At this moment, Yuan heard a familiar voice, and it appeared in front of him. It was the system panel that chose Shangguang, the system panel for becoming an awakener. But compared to his previous life, there was an extra option. Looking at the information introduction of Dark Apostle, he immediately remembered the powerful man known as the King of Deadpool. He can not only use various curses and poisons, but also can summon an undead army to serve him. But this was all because the Dark Apostle was different. Only one person is often chosen as a consort. This also means that the chosen person will exclusively possess all the powers of the light, so Yuan decisively chose the Dark Apostle. Because when he and Jiang Qilin fought against the King of Deadpool, he had thoroughly analyzed all the powers of the opponent. So he wanted to rely on this experience to become the next King of Deadpool. And then he would kill all the comrades who betrayed him and tear them to pieces. Yuran came to the Firebird Guild with the worst reputation, as a group that often backstabs and puts interests first. This is definitely the best place for him. After all, to truly become an evil force, he must be with the most vicious villains. In order to prove that he is an awakener, he put various skills of Xiangguang on the table. After all, only the awakened can tear it apart and master the power. Soon, Yuan was attracted to the skill called blood poison, which is exclusive to his dark apostle. It can turn blood into poison. Although the skill doesn't seem to be special and self-harm, but only Yuan himself knew. If the blood poison technique can be combined with and the stone demon's skills, the effect will be several times higher. With a dazzling light, Yuan successfully acquired the blood poison technique. Next, he will destroy the dungeon in the name of the guild. It's not only a way to earn money and daily expenses, but also to get ahead of others, to obtain rare skills and equipment first. But Yuan thought he could enter the dungeon alone. After all, it was just a goblin cave of level 1. But he didn't expect the guild to assign him 4 teammates. But according to his previous life's memory, these people would not become any big shots. They are probably the weak and useless ones. After entering the dungeon through the teleportation port, the bald-headed leader gave Yuan an order. He asked him to build a camp, asking him to survey the movements of the goblins around. Seeing Yuan walked into the depths of the woods without complaint, the other teammates also laughed out loud. He is really a newbie. He didn't know how dangerous the exploration was. Yes, the reason why Baldy asked Yuan to die in vain, so that the Taoist priest can get less rewards. How could Yuan not understand his teammates' intention? He showed a wicked smile and wanted to share the reward. You 4 rookies are not enough. Then, Yuan began to collect various information along the way. By relying on the claw marks left on the tree or the birds in the grass, he could find the goblin tribe. But at this moment, Yuan suddenly felt a hostile attack behind him. After dodging the stones thrown by the enemy, he found that it was 3 pigeons that attacked him. Goblins! Seeing this, Yuan immediately took out his weapon from his backpack and then slashed his palm with a knife. Yes, he was going to test the effect of blood poison technique. As he slashed the goblin in the back, the goblin immediately fell into a poisoned state. But seeing the goblin still roaring and attacking back, Yuan knew clearly the first level blood poison technique wouldn't have much effect. So in the next few rounds, he directly attacked the goblin's vital points. The sound of the battle quickly attracted a large number of goblins. But for the fisherman who was still active in the dungeon, it was not a threat at all. He took out another weapon from his backpack, which is a whip specifically for beating goblins. It can not only cause fear in the goblins, but also increase damage by 30%. Meanwhile, the 4-person team that abandoned Yuan also encountered an attack from the goblins. Although they managed to escape by luck in the end, everyone except the bald man began to be afraid and wanted to quit the dungeon quickly. This time, Bald had boasted too much. If they just run away like this, he would lose face. So he started to make promises to the other 3, saying that he still had a secret weapon. On the other hand, Yuan, after killing the goblins, he was praised by the Dark Apostle. He also acquired a new skill. The monster that can be killed by the user summons skeletons that will serve him. Meanwhile, it is also a key skill for the Deadpool King to build an undead army. For Yuran, who will fight alone in the future, is undoubtedly a godsend. Then, he reached out to the goblin he just killed. With a sizzling light, the goblin's body began to fall off. Then, a skeleton was given new vitality. But after seeing the power of the skeleton soldiers, Yuran realized that he must quickly increase his spiritual power value. Otherwise, the summoned skeletons could not be used as the main force. On the way to continue killing the goblins, Yuran saw a big tree full of skeletons of his kind. He never expected that goblins had such a hobby. So when facing any monster, we must not show mercy. Soon, Yuran found a cave. His previous life experience told him this must be the tribe where the goblins lived. Then he blocked the only exit with wood and sprinkled blood with blood poison on it. Then he lit it and burned it. The goblins hiding inside, seeing the smoke pouring in, tried to escape from the cave. The more anxious they became, the more toxic smoke they would inhale. Although the majority of goblins had arrived at the cave, but the hot flames prevented them from escaping easily. Finally, after the wood burned to ashes, the goblins he killed, and 99 trees. Seeing this, he took out a long sword from his backpack. And in the next second, the ground suddenly shook violently. Then, a tall goblin jumped out of the ground. This was the level boss, the goblin leader, the goblin chief. But just as he was about to attack, the skeleton soldier beside him actually stepped forward and asked to fight. Looking at the dead eyes of the skeleton soldier, he didn't hesitate to, handed him a long sword and leaned nearby to observe this duel. With a snap, the skeleton soldier picked up his long sword and flashed. The leader then did a Thomas spin. He directly came to the opponent's rear standing point. He slashed at the tendons of his feet. This series of skills, Yuran was surprised to see this. Because of this operation, was something he often did in his previous life. As long as the tendons were cut, it can completely limit the opponent's movement. For monsters who lost the ability to dodge, it was natural. It would become a lamb to be slaughtered. Surprised, Yuran couldn't help but show a wicked smile. He really didn't expect skeleton soldiers would copy his fighting style. In his previous life, Yu Liang was proficient in all types of weapons. If it was really as he thought, he would have to change his original plan. At this moment, the Dark Apostle once again gave gifts to Yuran. When he saw the introduction of the skill list, he felt that he would soon the most terrifying existence in the world. And since Yuran had already completed the standard task of killing 100 goblins, the dungeon was also on fire. But when he saw that the original 5-person team, only 4 people came out, the person in charge also knew it. For their Red Bird Guild, it was all about profit, losing a teammate. But before he finished speaking, Yuran walked out of the portal. The person in charge rushed forward. After confirming that Yuran was fine, he was relieved and let him leave. As for Baldhead, he was puzzled. He didn't understand how Yuran could clear the dungeon alone. To clear the dungeon, he then went to the bar to get drunk. The news was praising. Other guilds had broken through the stage, the dungeon, which instantly made him angry. At this time, his friend asked him how he got hurt. The bald head, who was still angry, he directly blamed Yuran for it. saying that if he hadn't saved Yuan at that time, that idiot, he would not have left a scar of shame. Later, this matter spread to hundreds of people, and constantly changing versions caused Yuan's reputation in the guild to become very bad. There were all kinds of rumors, such as abandoning partners. But this was not a bad thing for Yuan. Due to his reputation, no one wanted to team up with him. So after he took on another sabotage mission, he immediately drove away